Pay attention. If synchronicities have been flooding your life lately, if the same numbers keep appearing, if strangers keep saying exactly what you were just thinking, if the universe feels like it's speaking directly to you, this isn't random. Carl Jung spent decades documenting this exact phenomenon, and what he discovered will change how you see everything that's happening to you right now. Synchronicities don't show up just any time. They appear in clusters, during very specific windows of your life. And according to Jung, these windows only open when you're standing between two worlds, when one phase of your life is ending and another is about to begin. The problem is most people don't recognize what's happening. They notice the coincidences, feel the strangeness, sense that something big is shifting, but they don't understand the message. And because they don't understand it, they miss the window entirely. Because here's what Jung discovered that almost no one talks about. Synchronicities aren't just meaningful coincidences. They're markers, signs that you're in a transitional state, a liminal zone, where reality becomes more fluid, more responsive, more alive. And once that transition completes, once you cross fully into the new phase, the synchronicities stop. They disappear, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. So if they're showing up for you right now, if you're experiencing that eerie feeling that the universe is trying to tell you something, you need to hear this, because this window won't stay open. And what you do during this phase, the choices you make, the paths you choose, they will determine the entire trajectory of what comes next. I'm going to show you 3 unmistakable patterns that prove you're in this transitional window right now. 3 synchronicity signatures that Jung identified across hundreds of cases. And if even one of these is happening to you, everything you're experiencing, the confusion, the intensity, the sense that reality is bending around you, it all means something specific. But first, you need to understand what synchronicity actually is. Because most people get this completely wrong. They think it's just coincidence with meaning. But Jung's definition went much deeper than that. And once you understand what he really meant, once you see how synchronicity actually works, you'll never look at your life the same way again. Synchronicity, according to Jung, is when your inner world and outer world mirror each other in ways that can't be explained by cause and effect. When the thought in your head appears in physical reality, when the emotion you're feeling shows up as an event in the external world, when the question you're asking gets answered by something that has no logical connection to you asking it. Jung called this a causal connection, a link between things that isn't created by one causing the other, but by both arising from the same source. That source, your unconscious mind. Jung believed that the unconscious isn't just inside you, it's connected to a larger field, something he called the collective unconscious, a realm where all minds touch, where your thoughts, your emotions, your psychological state can influence the world around you in ways that seem impossible. And during times of major life transition, when your psyche is undergoing massive reorganization, that connection becomes incredibly strong, strong enough that the inner and outer worlds start to reflect each other with stunning precision. This is why synchronicities cluster during certain periods and vanish during others. When your life is stable, when you're comfortable in your identity, when nothing major is shifting, the unconscious stays quiet. The connection between inner and outer remains dormant. But when you're between phases, when your old self is dying and your new self is trying to emerge, the unconscious activates. It starts speaking, not in words but in events, in patterns, in synchronicities. And Jung documented this pattern over and over again. Patients would come to him reporting waves of meaningful coincidences, numbers appearing everywhere, books falling off shelves at the exact right moment, strangers approaching them with messages that felt orchestrated, dreams coming true in eerily specific ways. And every single time these patients were standing at a crossroads, a relationship ending, a career dissolving, an identity crumbling, a new path calling. They were in between, and that in-between space, that's where synchronicity lives. So if you're experiencing this right now, if your life feels like a series of impossible coincidences, you're not imagining it. You're in the zone. The question is, do you know what to look for? Do you understand the 3 patterns that reveal exactly where you are in this transition? Because these patterns aren't subtle. Once you know what they mean, once you see them clearly, they'll show you exactly what phase you're in and what's trying to emerge. Let me show you the first pattern, the one that always appears at the very beginning of a major life transition. Pattern number 1, the same symbol keeps appearing in different forms. This is how synchronicity announces itself. One symbol, one image, one concept showing up again and again in completely unrelated contexts. It might be a specific animal, a certain number, a phrase, a color, a name, but whatever it is, it follows you. You see it in a dream, then on a billboard, then in a conversation, then in a book you randomly pick up. Each appearance feels coincidental on its own, but when you step back and see how many times it's appeared, the pattern becomes undeniable. Jung called these recurring symbols archetypal markers, and he found that they always point to something in your unconscious that's trying to become conscious, something your psyche needs you to pay attention to. Let me give you a real example from Jung's work. He had a patient who kept seeing scarab beetles in her dreams, on her walks, in books she was reading, even in jewelry she'd randomly encounter. This went on for weeks. She mentioned it to Jung, but neither of them understood what it meant. Until one day during their session she was describing a particularly vivid dream about a golden scarab, and at that exact moment, Jung heard a tapping at the window. He opened it, and a scarab beetle flew into the room, the rarest beetle in that region, at the exact moment she was talking about it. This woman had been stuck in a rationalist worldview that was suffocating her. She couldn't access her intuition, her emotions, her deeper self, and the scarab, in ancient symbolism, represents transformation and rebirth. Her unconscious was trying to break through her rigid mental structure, and it used synchronicity to do it. The recurring symbol was a message, a signal that something in her needed to transform, and once she finally saw the pattern, once she understood what her unconscious was trying to tell her, everything shifted. She opened to parts of herself she'd been denying for years. The synchronicities had served their purpose. They'd guided her through the transition, and then they stopped. This is what's happening to you right now. That symbol you keep seeing, it's not random. It's a message from your unconscious, a clue about what's trying to emerge. Maybe it's a specific number, and every time you see it, you're thinking about the same thing. Maybe it's an animal that keeps crossing your path when you're feeling a certain emotion. Maybe it's a word that appears in conversations, songs, articles, always at moments when you're questioning something specific. Pay attention to the context, not just what the symbol is, but when it appears, what you're thinking about, what you're feeling, what question you're holding. Because the symbol itself isn't the message. The pattern of when and how it appears, that's the message. Jung found that people who tracked these patterns, who wrote down each appearance and looked for the connecting thread, they could decode what their unconscious was trying to communicate. They could see the shape of what was trying to be born. But here's where most people make a critical mistake. They see the symbol, they recognize the pattern, and then they try to force meaning onto it. They Google spiritual interpretations, they ask other people what it means, they impose someone else's understanding on their own experience, and in doing so they miss the actual message. Because synchronicity is deeply personal, the meaning isn't universal. It's specific to you, to your psyche, to what you're going through right now. The scarab meant transformation for Jung's patient, because that's what her unconscious needed to communicate. But for someone else, a scarab might mean something completely different. So don't look outside yourself for the answer. Look inside, sit with the symbol, feel what it stirs in you, notice what thoughts come up when you encounter it. Because your unconscious chose that specific symbol for a reason. It resonates with something in your personal history, your unique psychology, your individual journey. And if you listen carefully, if you pay attention to your internal response rather than external interpretations, the meaning will reveal itself. But you have to act quickly, because this first pattern, these recurring symbols, they only appear at the beginning of the transition. Once you cross a certain threshold, once the unconscious message has been delivered and received, they stop showing up. And that brings us to the second pattern, the one that proves you're not just starting a transition, but are deep in the middle of it. Pattern number 2, people appear with exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. This is the phase where synchronicity becomes almost supernatural, where the universe feels like it's actively conspiring to help you. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they message you that day. You need specific information, and a stranger on the train starts talking about that exact topic. You're struggling with a decision, and someone you just met says something that gives you complete clarity. These aren't just coincidences. Jung called this meaningful arrangement. The orchestration of people, events, and information in ways that support your psychological development. And during major life transitions, this orchestration intensifies dramatically. Because when you're between phases, when your psyche is reorganizing itself at a fundamental level, you become incredibly receptive to guidance. Your unconscious knows what you need, and through synchronicity, it brings those resources to you. Jung observed this constantly in his practice. Patients going through major transformations would report uncanny encounters, meeting people who had gone through the exact same experience, finding books that addressed their specific struggle, receiving advice that seemed impossibly tailored to their situation. And these encounters weren't just helpful, they were precisely timed. They came at the exact moment when the person was most ready to receive them. Not too early, when they wouldn't have understood, not too late when they would have already made a choice, but at the perfect threshold, the moment of maximum receptivity. This is what's happening to you right now. The people showing up in your life, the conversations happening around you, the information flowing your way, none of it is random. Your unconscious is pulling these resources toward you, arranging reality to support your transition. But here's the critical part. You have to recognize these moments for what they are, because the guidance doesn't come with a label. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up looking like ordinary life, a casual conversation, a random recommendation, a chance encounter. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not in a state of receptivity, you'll miss it completely. Jung had a patient who was struggling with whether to leave her marriage. She'd been agonizing over this decision for months, couldn't see a clear path forward. And one day she was sitting in a cafe, and the couple at the next table started having a conversation about how they'd navigated their own separation. They talked about the exact fears she was experiencing, the exact questions she was asking herself. It was as if they were speaking directly to her. But they weren't. They had no idea she was listening. This was synchronicity arranging reality to give her the perspective she needed, and she could have dismissed it, could have thought, just a coincidence. But instead, she recognized it as a message, and that conversation gave her the clarity to make the decision she'd been avoiding. This is what you need to do right now. Stop treating the people and information showing up in your life as random. Start seeing them as synchronistic guidance. That person who keeps coming to mind, reach out to them. That book everyone keeps mentioning, read it. That conversation you overheard that felt strangely relevant, it was. These aren't accidents. Your unconscious is using the external world to communicate what your conscious mind needs to know, but you have to meet it halfway. You have to be willing to follow the thread, to trust that these seemingly random occurrences are actually deeply meaningful. Jung emphasized this point repeatedly. Synchronicity requires participation. It's not a passive experience where the universe does everything for you. It's a collaboration between your conscious awareness and your unconscious wisdom. The unconscious creates the synchronicity. Your conscious mind has to recognize it and act on it. And here's what makes this phase so critical. These perfectly timed encounters, this meaningful arrangement of people and resources, it only lasts as long as you're in the transition. Once you cross into the new phase, once your psyche stabilizes in its new form, the orchestration stops, the helpers disappear, the guidance quiets. You're left to live the life you've chosen with the resources you've gathered. So if you're in this phase right now, if people and information are flowing toward you in ways that feel orchestrated, don't waste it, don't ignore it, don't dismiss it as coincidence. This is your unconscious giving you everything you need to make it through this transition successfully, but you have to pay attention, you have to act, you have to trust. Because the window is closing, every day you stay in this liminal space, you're one day closer to crossing into the new phase, and once you cross, these synchronicities will fade, the guidance will become less obvious, the support will feel less supernatural, you'll be on your own, living with the choices you made during this window. Which brings us to the third pattern, the final and most powerful synchronicity signature, the one that only appears at the very end of a transition, right before you cross the threshold into your new life. Pattern number 3, reality confirms your choice before you make it. This is the strangest and most profound form of synchronicity, and it only happens when you're standing at the exact moment of decision, when you're about to choose the path that will define your next phase. You're thinking about making a specific choice, not vaguely, but concretely. You're leaning toward a decision, but haven't committed yet. And then, before you actually choose, reality starts acting as if you've already chosen. Opportunities open, resources appear, obstacles dissolve, all pointing in the direction you're leaning. It's as if the universe is showing you what happens if you make that choice, giving you a preview, confirming that this is the right path. Jung called this anticipatory synchronicity, and he observed it happening right at the edge of major life transitions, when people were about to make the leap that would change everything. Let me tell you about one of Jung's most powerful cases of this. He had a patient who was deciding whether to leave his successful career in law to become an artist. He'd been painting in secret for years, felt a deep calling toward it, but was terrified to give up the security and prestige of his legal career. He couldn't commit to the decision, couldn't take the leap, and then, over the course of 2 weeks, a series of synchronicities unfolded. First, he received an unexpected inheritance. Not huge, but enough to live on for a year. Then, completely out of nowhere, he got contacted by a gallery owner who had seen one of his paintings at a friend's house and wanted to feature his work. Then his law firm announced restructuring, and his position was being eliminated anyway. Every single obstacle to becoming an artist dissolved. Every resource he needed appeared. And this all happened before he'd actually made the choice. It was as if reality was confirming, yes, this is your path, we're already making space for it. Jung recognized this as his unconscious through synchronicity, showing him that he was aligned with his true path, that the universe, or more accurately, the deeper intelligence of his own psyche, was supporting this choice. And once he finally committed, once he actually made the decision to become an artist, the synchronicities stopped. They'd served their purpose. They'd guided him to the threshold and shown him it was safe to cross. This is what's happening to you right now. If you're experiencing this third pattern, if you're thinking about a major choice, and reality is already moving in that direction, that's not random. That's your unconscious confirming that you're aligned with your deeper truth. That this choice, as scary as it might be, is the one your soul has been trying to make for a long time. But here's what you need to understand. This confirmation, these anticipatory synchronicities, they're not guarantees of easy success. They're not promises that everything will work out perfectly. They're signals that you're aligned, that this path is authentic to who you really are. The journey itself might still be difficult. The new phase might still have challenges, but the synchronicities are telling you that this difficulty is meaningful, that this struggle is yours to face, that this path, for better or worse, is the one you're meant to walk. Jung was very clear about this. Synchronicity doesn't make life easy, it makes it meaningful. It doesn't remove obstacles. It confirms that the obstacles you're facing are part of your unique journey. And during major transitions, when you're choosing the direction of your next phase, that confirmation is everything. Because the biggest barrier to transformation isn't external, it's internal. It's the voice in your head that says, who are you to choose this path? What if you're making a mistake? What if this is just a fantasy? And synchronicity silences that voice. It says, no, this is real, this is aligned, this is your truth, move forward. But you still have to move, you still have to choose. Synchronicity can confirm your path, but it can't walk it for you. And here's the part that terrifies most people. Once you make that choice, once you cross the threshold into the new phase, the synchronicities stop. The guidance quiets. The universe stops conspiring in obvious ways. You're on your own, living the life you chose. And that silence, that lack of synchronicity, it feels like abandonment, like you've been left alone. But Jung would tell you that's not what's happening. The synchronicities stop because you don't need them anymore. You've made it through the transition, you've crossed into the new phase, and now your job is to live it, to embody it, to make it real through your daily choices and actions. The unconscious guided you to the threshold, but the life beyond the threshold? That's yours to create. And that's why these three patterns are so critical to recognize, because they show you exactly where you are in the transition. If you're seeing recurring symbols, you're at the beginning. Your unconscious is trying to get your attention, trying to show you what needs to transform. If people and resources are flowing toward you in orchestrated ways, you're in the middle. You're being supported, given what you need to navigate the change. If reality is confirming a choice you haven't made yet, you're at the end. You're standing at the threshold, and it's time to leap. Each pattern corresponds to a specific phase, and understanding which phase you're in gives you incredible power, because you know what to focus on. You know what the synchronicities are trying to tell you. You know how much time you have left in this window. But here's what most people never understand. You can't force synchronicity. You can't manufacture it. You can't trick your unconscious into creating these patterns because you want guidance. Synchronicity only appears when genuine transformation is happening, when your psyche is actually reorganizing itself at a deep level, when real change is occurring, not just wished for. So if you're experiencing these patterns, it means transformation isn't something you're trying to make happen. It's something that's already happening to you, and the synchronicities are proof. Now let me tell you what happens next. Let me show you what to do with this information, because recognizing the patterns is only the first step. Jung was very clear that synchronicity requires action. It's not enough to notice the coincidences. You have to respond to them. You have to let them guide you. So here's what you do, starting tonight. First, track the symbols. Get a journal and write down every recurring image, number, word, or concept that keeps appearing. Note when it shows up, what you were thinking about, what you were feeling. Look for the pattern beneath the pattern. What connects all these appearances? What is your unconscious trying to make conscious? Second, pay attention to the people who keep showing up, who reaches out, who says something that stops you in your tracks. These aren't accidents, these are messengers. Your unconscious is using them to deliver information you need. Don't dismiss them, don't ignore them, engage, ask questions, follow the thread. Third, and this is the most important, trust the confirmations. If reality is moving in a direction before you've committed, that's your signal, that's your green light. The choice you're afraid to make, the path you're hesitating to choose, if synchronicity is pointing that way, stop hesitating, make the choice, take the leap, because the window is already closing. Jung emphasized this in every case he documented. The synchronicities don't last, they appear during the transition, and once the transition completes, they vanish, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. So if they're present in your life right now, if you're experiencing these patterns, you're in sacred time, you're in the liminal zone, the space between worlds. And what you do here, the awareness you bring, the choices you make, they will echo through the rest of your life. But you have to act, you have to participate. Synchronicity is a collaboration between you and your unconscious, between your awareness and the deeper intelligence trying to guide you. It creates the signs, you have to read them. It opens the doors, you have to walk through them. It confirms the path, you have to choose it. And if you work with these patterns instead of dismissing them, you won't just make it through this transition. You'll emerge as someone fundamentally different, someone aligned with their deepest truth, someone living their actual life, not the one they inherited or constructed or settled for. Jung spent his entire career studying transformation, and the one constant he found across every case, every culture, every individual, was this: synchronicity marks the turning points. It appears at the thresholds. It guides people through the dark passages where logic fails and intuition must lead. And then, once they've crossed into the new phase, it disappears, because it's done its job. So if you're experiencing it now, honor it, respect it, work with it, because this is your moment, this is your threshold, this is the passage that will define everything that comes next. The synchronicities are showing you the way, but you still have to walk it, you still have to choose, you still have to become who you're meant to be. And tomorrow when you wake up, you'll be one day closer to crossing that threshold, one day closer to the moment when the synchronicities stop and real life begins. Make sure you're ready, make sure you've paid attention, make sure you've followed the guidance your unconscious has been so desperately trying to give you. Because once this window closes, once you cross into the next phase, you can't go back. You can't recapture this moment. You can't get another chance at this specific transition. This is it. This is your time. And the synchronicities, these impossible coincidences, these meaningful patterns, they're proof that something extraordinary is happening, that you're not imagining it, that the universe or your unconscious or whatever you want to call it is speaking. The question is, are you listening? Are you responding? Are you brave enough to follow where it's leading? Because if you are, if you trust these patterns and act on them, you won't just survive this transition, you'll be transformed by it. You'll emerge as someone who knows, really knows, that reality is far stranger and more meaningful than you ever imagined. Someone who understands that the boundary between inner and outer, between mind and world, is far more permeable than society teaches. Someone who has learned to read the language of synchronicity and use it to navigate the most important passages of life. Jung called these people individuated. People who had completed the journey from unconscious to conscious, from fragmented to whole, from asleep to awake. And every single one of them reported the same thing, that synchronicity had guided them. That during their darkest transitions, when everything felt uncertain and terrifying, meaningful coincidences appeared like breadcrumbs, leading them forward, showing them the way, confirming that they were on the right path even when nothing made logical sense. This is your initiation. This is your passage. This is the moment when you either trust the deeper intelligence moving through your life, or you don't. When you either follow the synchronicities into the unknown, or you stay where it's safe and familiar and slowly dying. Choose wisely, because this window won't stay open. And once it closes, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to follow where it was leading. Don't let that be your story. If you're still watching, if you've made it this far, that itself is synchronicity. You were meant to hear this message at this exact moment, so drop a comment telling me which pattern you're experiencing. Because the people who recognize these signs, they're the ones who make it through, they're the ones who transform. Your synchronicities are speaking. It's time to listen. Until next time, trust the patterns and follow the signs.